So you mentioned supply chain issues, and we always see that in the news for like the past year, you could say. Um, how will they affect my future, like my investments in the future?
I actually think, ironically, that supply chain issues are going to be a positive for investments in the future. And I know that's like a completely contrarian thought process, but the reason I say this is because one of the big pushes right now for inflation is the fact that we don't have enough products for the demand that's being asked. And so as supply chain issues get better and better, we should see less inflation, should take more pressure off the Federal Reserve's, need to really, cut back on the economy. And that's a good thing for the stock market. It'll look at that very well. As we're sitting right now, the outlook on supply chains is relatively negative. And if I'm right and things do improve throughout the, next 6 to 18 months, that should continue to improve the investment arena. Because one of the things that you need as a company is if you got demand, somebody wants 100 units and you can only make 80, you're not reaching your full potential for what you can do in terms of your revenues and what have you. So that's where supply chain restrictions can cause problems for companies. And we've seen some of that. Apple in the third quarter reported that they could have sold a lot more, and they didn't because they couldn't get the products, right? And so they did better in the fourth quarter. They've come a long ways in their supply chain issues. And I think that's my key point. Just, I'm telling you, companies will go out of their way to try to solve supply chain issues when they know demand is there. Because it's a lot easier to spend money and get aggressive and try to really go after things, during a period of time where the stock market is the demand is high. It's going to take care of itself. So I guess I have a little different outlook on that. Actually think supply chain should help you here going forward. It has probably hurt us over the last 12 months because inflation is at least partly being driven by these supply chain shortages. But I think going forward, it's going to get better and better. And I think that could be one of the reasons the market's running up right now is that realization. And one of the reasons the market didn't go down as far as it could have, because there could be some improvements coming on the horizon.
Do you think there will ever be like a shift in the demand because as the economy or as people become more comfortable with more services like traveling again,
Yep.
cruises, do you think the demand for pure products will shift downward and services will go up and that will change the whole supply?
Yeah, I have three themes on the demand side. Number one, the Federal Reserve is raising rates. That brings down demand. Just because things cost more, credit card charges cost more, mortgages cost more, so there's less demand for homes, which is a huge driver, right? So that's one area. Then you would look at, just the fact that there's more supply, right? That kind of helps on the inflationary side. But the demand, in total, is also being fed by some of the stimulus money that came out. There's a lot of liquidity running around, so that starts to burn off. Um, yeah, I think you make a good point there. I think that it is going to get to be more even. The Federal Reserve has talked about this several times. That one of the problems is that if you look at goods and services, services haven't had much inflation. Goods have had almost all the inflation. Goods are what we can buy right now, theoretically, without much risk, right? We can order from Amazon. Services, we got to go out. Most of those are kind of face to face things, travel being one of the biggest, right? So when people start spreading their money across a more even distribution of goods and services, it'll take some of the pressure off of the demand for goods. Because, if you're traveling and spending money on travel, maybe you don't buy as many things from Amazon because you only have so much money, to spend in any one year. So yeah, that's another piece that's going to, I think, unwind here as the pandemic moves forward. I have seen a tremendous number of clients talking about traveling basically this summer, this fall, all kinds of trips that are scheduled and planned, and people are excited about that. So there's some pretty hefty money, I think, going to start running towards travel here, especially if there isn't some other huge wave of virus outbreak and what have you. So we'll see how that goes.